It began as an ordinary shift in a fast food restaurant that never really slept. The lights were always bright, the smell of oil and fries hung permanently in the air, and the rhythm of orders, takeout numbers called, fryers beeping, soda machines hissing, set the pace for everyone who worked there. For most customers, it was just another place to grab a quick meal. For the employees, it was a pressure cooker of long hours, low pay, and constant stress. Among them was a young woman who had been working at the restaurant for months. To outsiders, she seemed quiet, reserved, and hardworking. She rarely caused trouble, clocked in on time, and followed instructions. But beneath the surface, her life was unraveling. She depended heavily on her fixed work schedule to survive. Every hour mattered. Her rent, transportation, family responsibilities, and personal struggles were all carefully balanced on the fragile structure of her weekly shifts. Her manager, on the other hand, was known for being strict and uncompromising. He ran the store with efficiency in mind, often reshuffling schedules to cover shortages or boost productivity. To him, changing someone's hours was routine, a managerial decision made on a spreadsheet, not a personal attack. He believed employees should adapt. If someone complained, he saw it as a lack of professionalism. On the day everything went wrong, the restaurant was unusually busy. Several workers had called in sick, tempers were already flaring, and the manager was under pressure from upper management to keep things running smoothly. In the middle of the chaos, he made a decision that would prove fatal. He changed her working hours without warning. When she saw the updated schedule, her heart sank. The new hours clashed with commitments she couldn't afford to miss. It wasn't just inconvenient, it threatened her entire routine and stability. She approached the manager, hoping for understanding, maybe even compromise. What she got instead was dismissal. According to witnesses, the conversation quickly turned tense. She tried to explain her situation, her voice shaking, emotions barely contained. The manager, already stressed and impatient, cut her off. He reportedly told her that schedules were not negotiable and that if she couldn't comply, she could find another job. Those words landed like a final blow. For her, it wasn't just about hours. It was about feeling powerless, unseen, and disposable. Years of frustration, financial strain, personal hardships, and bottled-up anger rose to the surface all at once. Something inside her snapped. What happened next shocked everyone. In a moment that lasted only seconds, the argument escalated beyond control. The restaurant that had been filled with noise and movement suddenly froze in terror. Coworkers and customers watched in disbelief as the confrontation turned violent. By the time anyone realized the seriousness of what was unfolding, it was too late. Emergency services were called immediately. Employees screamed. Some ran outside. Others stood frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. The manager lay mortally wounded, the result of an act no one could have imagined would happen over a work schedule dispute. Police arrived quickly, securing the scene and arresting the worker without resistance. She appeared dazed, as if she herself couldn't fully comprehend what she had done. The weapon was recovered, and the restaurant was shut down as investigators began their work. News of the incident spread fast. Headlines reduced the tragedy to a shocking sentence. Fast food worker kills her manager after schedule change. Social media exploded with reactions: anger, disbelief, sorrow, and endless debate. Some saw her as a cold-blooded killer. Others argued the story reflected deeper systemic issues: worker exploitation, mental health neglect, and the crushing pressures faced by low-wage employees. As investigators dug deeper, a more complex picture emerged. Friends and family described her as someone who had been struggling silently. She had faced ongoing personal difficulties and emotional distress. There were signs she had been overwhelmed for a long time, but like many in similar positions, she had no access to proper support. Work was not just a job, it was survival. The manager's family, meanwhile, was left devastated. He was a father, a son, a loved one who had gone to work that day expecting to return home. To them, no explanation could justify what happened. A routine workplace disagreement had ended a life and shattered multiple families forever. In court, the case drew national attention. Prosecutors painted a clear picture of a deliberate act, emphasizing that no workplace conflict could excuse murder. The defense focused on her mental state, arguing that extreme stress, emotional instability, and a breaking point contributed to the tragedy. Expert witnesses spoke about how chronic stress and unresolved trauma can impair judgment, leading to catastrophic decisions. The courtroom was heavy with emotion. At times, she wept quietly. Other times, she stared straight ahead, expression empty. When she finally spoke, her words were filled with regret. She said she never intended for things to end the way they did, that she wished she could take everything back. But remorse could not undo the damage. The judge's sentence reflected the gravity of the crime, while acknowledging the difficult circumstances and psychological factors. The court made it clear that taking a life carried irreversible consequences. She was sentenced to spend many years behind bars, her future permanently altered by a single moment of violence. The restaurant eventually reopened under new management, but for those who had been there that day, nothing ever felt the same. Employees transferred or quit. Some struggled with trauma, replaying the incident in their minds. What was once a familiar workplace became a reminder of how quickly ordinary life can turn tragic. This case left behind difficult questions. How much pressure can a person take before breaking? What responsibility do workplaces have to recognize emotional distress among employees? And how many similar stories go unnoticed until one ends in irreversible violence? In the end, this was not just a story about a fast food worker and a manager. It was a story about human fragility, unchecked stress, and the devastating consequences of a moment when anger overtook reason. A simple schedule change, something that happens every day in workplaces around the world, became the trigger for a tragedy that could never be undone. 2 lives were effectively lost that day, one to death, the other to prison. And all that remains is a cautionary reminder. When frustration, powerlessness, and emotional pain are ignored, even the most ordinary environments can become the setting for unimaginable horror.